sheepy, on the move. All right. Oh, hello. Welcome to Victon College Lambing Shed. I'm Karen Warne, and I'm a farm instructor here. I've been a shepherd all my life, most of my adult life, and I love sheep. I have to say, lambing time is my absolute favourite, and however many thousands of sheep I've seen born, it's still magical. So today we're just going to run through on a virtual lambing session. We're going to talk about a few things about sheep, signs of lambing, and obviously we're going to look at these lovely cute little lambs here. At the end of the session, we have a live chat, so if there's any questions, if anybody wants to ask anything, if you just pop on there, send your question at the end of the session, we will try and answer them. We would normally obviously be here at Victon College with a lambing Sunday, but due to the restrictions, like everybody in the country, we're not able to speak, so hopefully next year we'll be here for real. But for the moment, we're doing a virtual live stream feed for you. So, as you can see, we've got very noisy sheep here. We're at the end of lambing. We've had about 100 sheep lamb this year, and we're down to about the last dozen, so they've actually done really well. The breed of sheep we've got, see this lovely sheep here, is ones you traditionally get on your Christmas cards. So they're Swaledale crosses. They're actually called mules, so they're Swaledale crosses with blue-faced Leicester. They're quite nice, long, lean sheep, and they tend to have sometimes 2 lambs or occasionally triplets. And what we do at college here, we bring them in maybe 2 weeks before lambing, and then as they lamb, as you can see, they're all put in pens. So we'll just move on to talking about looking after sheep. If anybody wants to have sheep, they actually are great animals to have. They're very easy to look after. It's a bit like you've got your own dogs. You obviously have to think about their welfare and their feed and their needs. And for sheep, they are all very much individuals. They're easy to keep. You can have them, they eat grass. Obviously, when they're inside, you can feed them hay or silage. And as long as you check them every day and make sure they've got food and water, and they're able to express themselves, have a nice environment, then they're quite easy to look after. So these sheep, they lamb once a year. Traditionally, they lamb once a year. There are other breeds of sheep, so something like the endangered Dorset Horn. They're much more prolific, and they would lamb twice in a year. But as I say, for ours, they just lamb once a year, which is great. So signs of lambing, when they're starting to lamb, really there's 2 stages. So the first stage of labour might be any between 3 to 6 hours. So she's feeling a bit, because obviously she's getting contractions and twinges, or if she's in a field, she might do the same. So they would go to the corner, they will start pawing the ground, they might be circling, and really what they're doing is, because they're feeling uncomfortable, they're just getting into the beginnings of lambing. So they'll be up and down and really just quite restless. And then, as I say, this could be 3 to 6 hours before they actually give birth. So when they're coming to the second stage of labour and lambing, something like this girl here, who's a little bit older, so she's maybe 6 or 8 years old, she knows what she's doing. So she might only take about, in the second stage, maybe half an hour to an hour to lamb, because she's obviously lambed many times before, so she knows what she's doing. So when she's getting ready to lamb, you will see that from her back end, she's got a very pink vulva, and she might just have a little bit of a water bag coming out, which is a sign that lambing is becoming much, much nearer. And then she'll lie down and she'll raise her head, and they often do lip smacking, so the tongues are going in and out, and it's just a form of the contractions are getting very close, and then they're getting ready to lamb. So when the lamb comes out, a normal presentation is his head should be there and his legs, so he will come streamlined out with the used backbone, so he'll come out like that. 9 times out of 10, sheep do lamb without any trouble at all, but sometimes you might get ones, yes, yeah, you might get, he's got one leg back, or he might have his head not coming in the right direction, or you might even get a breech where you only have the tail showing first or one back leg. And they're easy to sort out. And if you think with your ewe, I'm not quite sure what's going on here, don't be afraid to go in and have a look. And I have to pick this one up because he is so beautiful. If you see, he's got a lovely black mark there. So with the lambing, once she's delivered her lambs, sheep tend to turn around straight away. They'll lick them up because obviously they've come out of a really warm, wet environment. So once they're delivered, the ewe will turn around and she'll lick them up, which gets them dry and clean, and it also invigorates them and pushes them on to get up on their feet and have the first milk. Now, lambs really need, the first milk is colostrum, and that is really important for lambs because it's full of all the antibodies that it needs for the immune system. So this little lamb is just gorgeous. He's so lovely. And as you can see, he's got a lovely black mark. And lambs do come in all shapes and sizes. They tend to be, there you go, lady. They tend to be just white or sometimes a little bit speckled. And in the pen at the end there, we've got a lovely little set of triplets. So I'm just going to move on there to show you those. As I said, just let me climb in here. Sheep quite often have quads and quite often have triplets. You can scan your sheep so you know exactly what you're getting, which means that you can manage their feed. Ooh, where's your other one? So I find another lamb here. Come on, Lambsy. Ooh, there we go. So, oh, these cuties. Whoa. These are 2 out of little 3. I can't find 3 at the moment, but they are just adorable. So these were born yesterday, so they're only probably about 25 years old. And as you can see, they've already, we dip their navels, so the umbilical cord, so they go nice and dry, so they don't get any infection there. And as you can see, she's a really good mother. I have to raise my voice so you can all hear. You get that, 2 of those. Oh. So she had 2 little ones and 1 bigger lamb. So, as I say, once they're lambed, mothers lick them off, they get milk, and they're quite happy then. And what happens after the mothers clean them up and they've all had their milk, they tend to stay in the lambing shed for, so if they were born yesterday, they'll be in today, so they'll go out to the fields tomorrow. So they're quite strong and happy. They've all bonded because it's obviously very important. A bit like babies and mothers, you give them time to get used to the smell and how they feel, so that when she goes out to the field, I know people say sheep look all the same, but they don't. They do look different. And obviously for a mother, her lambs are going to smell unique to her. So it's very important when they're in the pen that she gets to know her own lambs properly and familiar with how they smell. So when they go out to the fields, they're really happy, they're all bonded, and she can go off and eat hay and straw, grass rather, outside. And her lambs will follow her, and then as she's eating lots of grass, that will encourage her to have a good supply of milk. So we'll leave these little triplets here, put them under with the mother. You're right, you're a good girl. You see, they are quite friendly sheep. Obviously, they're used to being handled quite a bit, so it does make it easier. And as you can see, they've got hay in their racks. We did fill them up before we started, but they eat a lot of hay, and they're happily going on there. So what we're going to do now, we'll catch up with you in a minute. We're just going to have a bit of a live stream coming on with a video, and we'll see you next door with the pet lambs. Hello, welcome back. Right, as you see, we have a very noisy little lamb in the pen there, but these are both pet lambs, and as you can see, he's got quite big horns. So remember I said about Christmas card sheep with big horns. He's three-quarter Tatfield, and the other quarter will be a Swaledale. So the ones on Christmas cards are those really big, curly horns. So these are pet lambs for a variety of reasons. You know, the mother either didn't have enough milk, so they need a supplement, and they ended up as a pet lamb, or she might have had three and has enough milk for only two lambs, so you get one left over. So then you join your pen of pet lambs. So that's why probably these are pet lambs. They're about, I'll just start feeding him, see if he wants any. Oh, yes, here he goes. Oh, yes, wants lots of that. And pet lambs can be quite greedy. He's obviously, as I say, about 2 or 3 weeks old. And at this stage, they'd probably be fed 3 times a day. Whereas when you get them and they're only a couple of days old, you would feed them every 2 to 3 hours just to make sure, because they get a little bit, because obviously the tummies are much smaller. And I'm going to have to divide this between the other lambs, so I will let him have half this bottle, because it looks like you'll have the whole lot. But pet lambs, they do become very domesticated very easily, and as you can see, he's loving this milk. And he's gonna, I'll let him just get halfway, and then we'll leave enough for them to on there. Oh, you can have a little bit more. There you go. So when you first start feeding pet lambs, obviously they don't like the bottle because they're not used to it, so you just have to persevere a little bit. But once they get the hang of it, as you can see, he can't get enough. So I'm just going to stop you there, little man. So what I wanted to say about sheep before, if you will oblige, these sheep, they only actually have teeth on the bottom jaw. I think I might just swap for this little, we fed him. There you go, little lamb. I'll just swap for the other one. Come on, Lambsy. I know you want some milk. There you go. Right. So just swap this one. He's had his food. Yeah, I'll give you milk in a minute. So with lambs and sheep, they only have teeth on the bottom jaw. And as you can see with this little lamb, he's got 2 bigger teeth just in the middle there. I'll just feed him so that keeps him happy. There you go, Lambsy. Come on, come on. So sheep, they only have teeth on the bottom layer, and they have a hard gum on the top with no teeth. And how you tell the age of sheep, really, is when they're little, like these little lambs, they have 8 little teeth, all the same height on the lower jaw. And then as they become 1 year old and just a little bit more, they have 2 teeth that are up, stick up the same height. And then when they get towards 2 to 3 years old, they have 4 teeth that stick up, and they're all the same height, obviously the little smaller ones at the side. And then when they get to 3 years old or more, they have 6 teeth. And then when they get to 4 years old, oh, we're snuffling a bit there. Sometimes you have to stop feeding them because what they do is they gasp and get too much air. You can hear that sort of, yeah, you've had yours. Wait a minute. So they get 8 teeth, and when they've got 8 teeth, we call them a full mouth. So they literally have a full mouth of teeth, but they're all the same height. And with that, oh, I think you've had enough there, Lambsy. All right. So they're a full mouth. As they get older, so sheep's lifespan will be anything from maybe 8 to 10 years old. So once they pass full mouth stage and they get maybe towards 6, 8 years old, like with all of us, your teeth aren't quite so good, so they end up with bits getting broken or they lose teeth. And then that's when you call them a broken mouth. So if you're ever looking in a sheep's mouth and you see it's got lots of bits missing, do you want this last bit, Lambsy? Come on, come on. All right, oh, he's bouncing. Come on now. Oh. There you go, you finish this last bit. There you go. Oh yes, he's going to finish that. So they'll have broken teeth because they're obviously getting older. And like with all of us, as you get older, come on, they need a little bit more care. And as I say, generally sheep eat grass, and when they're in lamb, you'll give extra supplements, maybe concentrates and things like that. So it's all palatable for them. So those are little pet lambs. And with the pet lambs, once they get to maybe a month old or more, they can easily go outside. You might still need milk, but they just get weaned onto like small grass pellets, protein pellets rather, as well as having grass, so they can go in and out, and they have the fresh air. And obviously, with all of them having fresh air, they're going to grow much better. So that tends to be what happens with the pet lambs. Is there anything else I need to cover, or do we want to just go on to a few questions? Are there any questions to ask?
Yeah, okay. So there's a question from Trudy. How long will the sheep stay in those little pens with their lambs before they go somewhere else?
Okay. Generally, if they're all happy, and as I say, they get bonded, and the mother is quite familiar with her lambs, and they're full of milk, and there's no problems, probably 24 hours, 48 hours, something like that. So if they were born, today's Sunday, so if they're born yesterday, they'll go up tomorrow morning. So yeah, just a short time, just to make sure that everything's all right. So yeah, that sort of time.
And do they then go out in the field?
Yes. Yeah, they all go out into the field. Obviously, the weather's lovely at the moment, and the one thing sheep don't like is rain. They don't mind if it's cold, but obviously when they're small, they don't like a lot of rain. But there's plenty of trees around here and little places that they can shade. So hopefully, if it does come back to rain, they won't get too wet.
That's good. It answers one of the other questions,
Oh,
which
right.
said, does lots of rain bother them when they're out and about?
It only bothers them when they're really young, because obviously haven't got as much energy and fat layers. But once they get bigger, then they've got more wool to cover them, so they have protection, and they're a bit more covered. But they don't like rain when they're little. No.
How long does it take them to get to the point where they're okay in the rain?
A couple of months old, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, another question from Sean. Is there a particular breed that is better to keep as a small group?
Yes and no. It all depends on. I think with sheep, because I used to have my own sheep, and I had Romney Marsh. I think you have to. It's a bit like choosing a dog or a puppy. You have to connect with them. So choose a breed you really like. I would generally say go for something that's quieter. So something like a Dorset, even a Southdown. They're quite nice and small, so they're easy to handle, or even a Suffolk. Mules are great. They do come historically from hill and fell areas, so they like being out and about. So really, I think if you're thinking of having just a few, a Dorset or as I say, a Southdown, something of a little bit of a quieter nature.
Okay. Next question is from Kate. How can you tell them apart?
Everybody says that sheep do look different. Well, as you can see from these two, oops, sorry, Lance, obviously he's got horns, so that's easy to recognise, and the other one hasn't. They do have different markings, and whilst the Swaledale Blue-faced Leicesters are speckled, so we've got a speckled one there, but she's got more of a white blaze. That one over there is more white, so they do look different. And as you say, on their legs, they have different markings as well, and you can tell the difference. But obviously, as a group, they might look the same, but not individually.
Another message from Trudy. How long do they stay with their mum?
They stay with their mother until they're weaned. So that again could probably be when they're 16 weeks old, 4 or 5 months, something like that.
Do you name the baby lambs?
When I had my own sheep, I did, yes, because my boys were young and growing up then. So yes, it is fun. So yes, I do name them. I don't know if these lambs have got any names. I know there's another one in another group that's called Simon, but these two, I'm not aware of what they're called.
Okay. How old are the lambs that you were feeding?
They're about 2.5 weeks old. So yeah, as you can see, one's quite big and chunky, and the other one's slightly smaller. But then you all grow differently, don't they? So but yeah, they're only a few weeks old.
Okay. Question from Fibella. Can they handle cold temperatures, really cold, minus temperatures?
They can. I mean, we don't tend to get an awful lot of snow, and obviously it's going to be much colder in snowy times. Extreme weather is not good for anybody, but yeah, they can handle quite, because they've got fairly thick fleeces. Obviously, different breeds have different lengths of coat, but they do have fleeces which are good insulators. So yeah, reasonably.
Question from Sean. Is it common for the mums to reject the sheep from time to time?
It is actually quite common. I don't know why they do, but sometimes if you've got a lot of sheep lambing together, they get a little bit muddled up. And like I said in the pen with that lovely lamb with black spot, if the mother isn't familiar with the smell and something isn't right, then yes, they do reject them. So which is why you might end up with a pet lamb, because if she doesn't like it, then you take it away and have to rear it on a bottle.
Okay. Eleanor and Freya would like to know whether the lambs like to play.
They do. Lambs love to play. So often, I don't know if you've noticed, when you go out into the fields, you see a whole load of lambs just running together, which is a gorgeous sight. And it's a bit like, you know, when we were all young, you just love being outside. You just want to play with your friends. So yeah, they do like to play, definitely.
Isla would like to know what milk they drink.
It's a special lamb formula milk, so it is a bit like baby milk, but it's for lambs. So it's specially made up and formulated for lambs, so it is a powdered milk.
Okay, that seems to be all the questions that we have.
The one thing I did want to add, which has just come to mind now, when you were saying about lambs playing in fields, which is a lovely sight to see, I just wanted to say to everybody that has dogs, I have a dog as well, and although he's completely bomb-proof and he's lovely, what we would ask is that everybody puts their dogs on leads when they're walking through fields or near sheep, because obviously sheep are herded together by sheepdogs because they know what they're doing and they're trained, and they do tend to run together. So if you don't have your dog on a lead, it can cause an awful lot of damage to ewes and lambs. So please just put your dogs on leads. You know, that would be really great. So if there's no other questions.
There was just a couple more that have come in, sorry.
Right, okay.
Just a couple of people that have commented on how very cute the lambs are.
Can you see them again?
Yeah, so Logan has asked what breeds we keep.
Okay, right, I'll just get them in here. These, as I said, the main breeds we've got are the mules, and they are crossed with a Texel or a Charolais. And this lamb here, he's 3/4 Texel. As I said, he's got horns because he's from the Swaledale. Bits come out. That one there is also a Texel, 3/4 Texel. But as you can see, whoopsie, come on, Nancy, he doesn't have horns. So yeah, they are white-faced. So easier. And Texels and Charolais are white-faced. Charolais and Texels both have a little bit more of a square head. He's got quite a square head than the other breeds of sheep.
How much do sheep weigh?
Sheep, as in ewes.
Yes.
They will vary. So the ewes we've got here will probably be something like 70 to 80 kilos. Other breeds, as I said, they might be, especially with your South Downs, maybe 40 to 50, but sort of an average for you would be 70 to 80 kilos, something like that.
Okay, and when do you shear the lambs for the very first time?
Shear the lambs. Shearing time is, depending on the weather, is normally sort of between May and June. So what you want with shearing is, with sheep that have got big fleeces, they've got naturally lots of grease and lanolin in it. So as the weather warms up, the wool just lifts. So if you think of your hair, you've got like a gap. So the wool lifts up and then it's much easier to shear. So yeah, anytime mid-May onwards, really.
Okay, and just one final question, it looks like. Imi and Isaac would like to know if their parents are protective over the lambs.
Very. If you go towards a sheep, and especially, as I say, if you've got a dog on a lead, they will stamp their feet and they will butt. So they are very protective, yes. Yeah, they are.
Okay, I have one more question, sorry. They keep
come on.
popping up.
That's
Everybody
right.
wants to ask. Okay, how many lambs do you normally have at one time?
On average, a lot of sheep will have doubles, so they will have two. Sometimes they will have triplets if they're older, but you know, average is two, because these are lowland sheep. If they were a hill breed, they would only have one because the conditions are harder, so they'd, you know, rear one much more successfully. You know,
How many can they have at one time?
they can have anything up to 6. That is very unusual, but you can have 6, but they could have 3 or 4, they could have quads, but so it varies. But average would be, you want them to have 2. You're a noisy sound.
Not a question, but a shout out to Stella and Alfie who are watching.
Hello, Stella and Alfie. Hope you're enjoying it.
Another question. Where do they go to sleep at night? This is from Molly.
Okay. They tend to, when they're out in the fields, the ewes will lie down and the lambs tend to snuggle up into their mothers because obviously the wool, as you know, with woolly jumpers, are nice and warm. So they will snuggle into them and, you know, go to sleep there.
Zane would like to know if you trim their fur.
We don't trim their fur. But as we said with shearing, that's when you take all the fleece off, because obviously it's too hot and it's better in the summer so that they don't have fleece on. But maybe don't trim them. Other than if you were going to go showing, you might want to trim them so they look slightly better, but not generally, no. All right, Ramsey.
And that appears to be all the questions.
Right, okay. So I hope you've enjoyed this morning. Thank you very much for watching our virtual Lambing Sunday. And we hope next year that we're all back to some sort of normality and we'll actually be able to welcome you here for a proper Lambing Sunday. I think there's a website. Don't forget to look at any websites for any information, courses that you might be able to do here at Victon, and check out the website for any future events that are coming up as well. Okay, thank you very much. Look at you, lamb, lazy thing. There we go. Down we go.